Well, the Democrats and their supporters are currently dancing in the streets, celebrating something they barely understand. There's a real problem growing within the Democratic Party's strategy that Donald Trump may have driven a stake through the heart of the vampire that is the immortal DNC, the undead that seemingly could not be stopped. And people just keep voting for these people over and over again. But Trump did something. Trump got a bunch of different groups, Latinos, black voters, Native Americans, to support him, thus putting a stake through the heart of one of the most important Democrat narratives, the racist, white supremacist Republican. And that's a real problem. If Democrats can't keep using the race cudgel, what are they going to use? Well, listen, I think they'll still rely on it moving forward, but now we have an article from The Atlantic saying, the most important divide in American politics isn't race. The polarization of place and the depolarization of race are the stories of the moment, from Derek Thompson. And he brings up a very important point. The Democrats kept trying to say Trump's a racist, and Trump was gaining among minorities. In fact, there's one dude, I don't want to say his name, but he's like, he calls himself a black identity extremist on Twitter, and he's saying that Trump got cheated. And this guy doesn't like Trump. Trump's gaining. They don't believe it. Here's a story from The Atlantic. They say, two themes seem to define the 2020 election results we've seen so far, and also build on a decade or more of political developments: the depolarization of race and the polarization of place. Democrats have historically won about 90% of the black vote and more than 65% of the Latino vote. But initial returns suggest that Joe Biden might have lost ground with non-white voters. The most obvious drift is happening among Latinos. In Florida, Biden underperformed in heavy Latino areas, especially Miami-Dade County, whose Cuban-American population seems to have turned out for Donald Trump. Across the Southeast, majority Latino precincts in Florida, Georgia, and North Carolina swung 11.5 points towards Republicans since 2016. In southern Texas, Trump won several heavily Latino counties in the Rio Grande Valley, including Zapata, the second most Latino county in the country, which hadn't voted for a Republican in 100 years. Wow, that's crazy. Even in the Democratic fortress of Massachusetts, cities with the highest share of Latino voters saw the starkest shifts towards Trump, according to Rich Parr, the research director for the Mass INC polling group. Some evidence suggests that Biden lost support among other minority groups as well. In North Carolina's Robeson County, where Native Americans account for a majority of voters, and which Barack Obama won by 20 points, Biden lost by 40 points. What? That is insane. In Detroit, where nearly 80% of the population is black, Trump's support grew from its 2016 levels, albeit by only 5,000 votes. Exit polls also found that black and Latino men in particular inched towards Trump in 2020, but these surveys are unreliable. The slight but significant depolarization of race didn't happen out of nowhere. As the pollster David Shore told New York Magazine in July, black voters trended Republican in 2016, while Latino voters also moved right in some battleground states. In 2018, I think it's absolutely clear that relative to the rest of the country, non-white voters trended Republican. We are seeing this in 2020 polling too. I think there's a lot of denial about this fact. After this election, the trend may be harder to deny. My friends, this is a rebuke of wokeism. It is. You see, minorities don't like being pandered to or lied about. And I tell you, man, I think everybody understands what it's like to deal with someone who's condescending. Could you imagine being a minority? And many of you probably are. And you've got some like white, uppity, well-to-do progressive being like, actually, I'm going to tell you how you really feel. I'm going to tell you what's right for you. Sorry, I'm not interested in hearing it. I think it's funny, as you know, my experience with my family, being told by these well-to-do progressives what life is really like for minorities. And I'm like, not only am I from the South Side of Chicago, do I have a bunch of friends who are minorities? I come from a mixed race family. You have no idea what you're talking about. So when I see my friends from my mixed area, and I say mixed as in like we had people of all different racial backgrounds, and they're talking about voting for Trump, it's because we're sick of you treating us this way. And that is huge. Donald Trump led a lot of people away from the lies of the Democratic Party. Now, I got to say, I just don't understand why Chicago just keeps voting for these people over and over and over again. I've come to a point where I'm like, I might not agree with these Republicans, but man, you just got to do something different, right? Look, there are some Republicans. I looked up the Republicans that had voted for down ticket, and I said, sure, fine, whatever. I thought Donald Trump's second term agenda was pretty good. We're still in the midst of this period. We'll see who ends up actually winning in the end. Projected winner, of course, being Biden. I saw what Trump was talking about, and I was like, that's cool. So you're going to have to explain to me, left. They say, Tim's a grifter. That's the only explanation. Trump gained, 8 million votes. Many of them came from minority groups, and more minority groups shifted right than did left. The left is losing these minorities and becoming a party of white people. Isn't it funny? As they come out and claim Black Lives Matter, they actually end up losing minority support. That, to me, is truly fascinating. Take a look at this map. Nate Silver says, personally, given a lot of state by state and region by region variation, I suspect it will turn out to reflect a combination of several different factors. The same goes for vote shifts in 2016. Weird, crazy map. Well, it's a big thread, but what he's talking about is the strange shift we've seen. Take a look at the Pacific Northwest and California. Oh, so many white people moving left. You can see in Idaho and Utah move to the right. And okay, sure, there's a lot of white people there too. But take a look at southern Texas. A lot of Latinos. Take a look at Florida. A lot of people in these areas saying, nah. Take a look just south of Chicago and look at this. These red areas. This is Gary, Indiana. These are not white places. Donald Trump did great things for the Republican Party. He really did. And the Democrats are going to be in trouble. They're going to have to find out. It's an old map, by the way. Obviously, they've already called it for Joe Biden. The Democrats aren't going to be able to use that white supremacy cudgel anymore. I mean, what are they going to say? They're going to try, but it's failing. It didn't work. I'm fine. I'm happy to hear it. I was sick of the constant lies about Trump being all of these awful things. I'm like, dude, shut up, man. I cannot stand these pasty, well-to-do white progressives who think they're so much smarter and better than you, preaching their ridiculous ideology and telling the lonely Latinxes how they should be voting. You know what we saw? We saw them walk up to the Latino community and say, howdy, Latinx, and have all of them say, what? Yeah, that was a poll. Found something like 2% of the Latino community responded well to the phrase Latinx. And thus, Donald Trump actually spoke to them better. You see, what the Democrats are proposing in terms of the wokeness isn't just social justice policy and weird words like Latinx. It's also just socialism. So you look at Florida, that's obvious. These people fled. Then you look at South Texas, and what does Trump say? Trump says religion, family, hard work. Guess what? These people recognize that because the stereotypes coming from the left are just that, stereotypes, fake news. The left, the Democrats just didn't get it, I guess. Well, they didn't do the worst, but they did get soundly defeated across the board. They make some gains in the Senate, but let me tell you something. The Senate had more seats, more Republicans were running for re-election than Democrats, meaning more vulnerabilities for Republicans. The fact that Republicans are going to hold their ground, all eyes on Georgia, means Democrats did not make any real gains. In the next Senate races, it's going to be bad for Democrats. And the House the state level races went for the Republicans. The Democrats took a crushing defeat. And what did they get? For everything they did, they got Joe Biden. All I got to say is yikes, man. They've tried for the longest time to play this white supremacy card. Donald Trump, he put an end to that. They say, this is from Atlantic again. The depolarization of race will make it harder for Democrats to count on demography as a glide path to a permanent majority. It should make them think hard about how a president they excoriate as a white supremacist somehow grew his support among non-white Americans. But in the long run, racial depolarization might be good for America. A lily white Republican Party that relies on minority demonization as an engine for voter turnout is dangerous for a pluralist country. I don't think that's what they do. But I will tell you this. I am inspired by people like Billy Prempe and Kimberly Klacik. They're black individuals who ran for office in urban centers. That's what it's all about. We need political competition. We cannot just keep having these Democrats win in cities all day, every week, every month, every year, over and over and over again. It's about time someone actually decided to run and challenge this and say, we're not just going to sit back and keep voting for these same people who aren't doing anything. For too long, no one held these politicians to the flames. Now we're starting to see it. So get some Republicans up in North Jersey, in Baltimore, in Chicago to run in city centers, take it seriously, and start chipping away. Tell these people they can't just claim racism anymore, because now you got Kimberly Klacik. Now you got people like Billy Prempeh. They are running. You got John James. I guess he's challenging up in Michigan. They're not just going to back down. And I think it's ridiculous that the Democrats have made it about race in the first place, because these people I just look at as passionate individuals who believe in something good for their community and are fighting for it. And I don't care what their race is. I'm sick of how the left has turned us into this argument. And I'm glad to see that Donald Trump has put a stake through its heart. I don't know what's going to happen. Trump may end up going down. I mean, he might just not get reelection. It might go to Biden. There's still the certification process. There's still the December, the Electoral College certification process. And Trump has a legal path. He does. It seems slim. I could be wrong. But I'll tell you, if it is true that Trump goes down, I think people on the right are underestimating how much they've gained from his presidency. Major victories. I'll leave it there. I got one more segment coming up in a few minutes. Stick around, and I will see you all shortly.